Your work kind of reminds me of like a Gordon Ramsay or Robert Irvine when they come into a restaurant and it's like struggling, and they put their work in and get it up and running, and you're doing that with businesses. Like share a success story of you accomplishing that, taking a company that was like totally like dysfunctional and getting it to the point where it was like night and day. The civility
Oh yeah.
was through the
No,
roof.
there's so many like stories, right? Because it's not about it going night and day, right? Because again, it's going to take a while to see the results, but I'll share one example, right? I just talked about this. That's why it's on the top of my mind. I gave a disrupt HR talk in San Francisco. And this is the story I shared during that presentation, was that I was dealing with a company, it was here in the Bay Area, a tech company, and they were like literally drowning in high turnover, right? They were just dealing with a lot of turnover, and it was exactly to the point you were going at. And so they brought me in to do some civility training. And I remember like halfway through the session, I noticed this man, and he was kind of like leaning in his chair. He had his arms crossed. I could see he was like visibly disengaged in the training, and he had that like that I called it the universal "I don't want to be here" look, right, on his
Mm-hmm.
face, right. And so during the break, I went up to him, and this literally just happened, right, like last year. And so during the break, I went up to him and I said, "Hey, you look a little frustrated or distracted. Like, what's on your mind, right?" And he was like, "Well, Sejal, like, no offense, I've been managing team for over 15 years. I don't need another training session to tell me what I already know." Right. And that's what he said. And it's not the first time I've heard that, right? I've heard other managers tell me that. And so, I could have easily like brushed him off in that moment and just left it at that, but I didn't. Right. And so I tried to connect with him, and I told him about like when I first started practicing law, and how I used to think like knowing the law was enough. As I know the law, and that's when you're managing people, you realize like you need to know a lot more than just what the law is, right? There's a lot more to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, I told him about a case that I'd worked on a while back, like when I was still litigating cases, where a company, a manager who had some incivility going on in his team, ignored it because he didn't think it was a big deal, and how that one situation turned into a lawsuit that cost the company almost $1 million, right? And so I'm telling this guy about that example. And by the end of that conversation, he wasn't just listening, like he was literally engaged in the conversation. It was a complete 180 after we got back in the workshop. He was asking questions now. He was focused. He even started mentoring one of the younger managers, right? So this all happened. And then 6 months later, the company's HR director called me, and she's like, "Sejal, I don't know what you said to him." Right? She goes, "He's a completely different leader now." And I said to her, I go, "What do you mean by that?" She goes, the morale on his team has gone up, and the turnover in his department has gone down by 40%.